welcome back to my channel. My name is Leslie, and it is time for our May wrap up. Now, I read 14 books this month, so that's pretty good. However, I DNF'd 3. So let's talk about them, get into all of the ratings, the reasons why I DNF'd so many books, and yeah, let's get into it. So the first book that I finished was a very strong start to May. I was able to get approved for a NetGalley copy of We Are All Guilty Here by Karen Slaughter from William Morrow. It is available August 12th. I don't want to say too much because I do have a more in-depth review coming out later, but this is going to be the start of a new series following a character named Emmy, and I gave it 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I mean, I love Karen Slaughter, but this one was one of my favorites of hers that I've read so far. So, like I said, I have a more in-depth review that goes a little bit more into the summary coming later. So, you'll just have to wait for that one. And I'm not going to say any more except I loved this book. Then next, I finished The Surrogate Mother by Frida McFadden. I listened to this one on audiobook and I gave it 4 stars. However, I don't really remember much about this book at all. Obviously, I was entertained while I was reading it, but it was very forgettable. I did not write down character names, so I cannot tell you a single character name. What I can tell you is what I wrote down, which is very minimal. I said that I thought it was predictable until the last 5 chapters threw me. So I guess that's my review for this book because I don't remember anything else to tell you. So I guess it's just purely entertainment and nothing else. So 4 stars for entertainment, I suppose. Next, it was finally time to dive in to the Smythe Smith Quartet. So I read the first in the series, Just Like Heaven by Julia Quinn. This one follows Honoria, and she is one of the violinists for the quartet. She is very much aware that they are not a good musical group at all, but she loves tradition, so she adores their musical performances. And she is getting to know her brother's best friend Marcus through some really crazy situations, some life or death situations. This was very cute. It felt a lot closer to the vibes of the original Bridgerton series as opposed to the prequels that really didn't hit that same feeling. And I think that's because this actually takes place during the same time period as the original series. So we are seeing cameos from some of our beloved Bridgertons. So I really enjoyed this one. I give it 4.5 stars, and I am very much looking forward to continuing this series. Next, I read The Tenant by Frida McFadden. This is her newest release. Um, it felt very similar in vibes to The Housemaid, which I did enjoy The Housemaid, so I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it was pretty similar. I gave it 4 stars. This is available on Kindle Unlimited. This is following Blake. He has just lost his job. They are struggling financially, and him and his fiance decide that they need to take in a tenant in their apartment in order to afford life, basically. And this tenant is like the nightmare of all tenants. There's a bunch of crazy stuff that happens. It's kind of a slow burn. I feel like the first, well, all of part 1 was kind of slow. Um, there's like mind games, nothing too crazy. Well, I shouldn't say nothing too crazy because trigger warning, maggots, if you know, you know. But it doesn't start picking up until like part 2 it starts getting better, I would say. Blake is despicable. I hate Blake. And let me just say that saying, "Oh, that woman's skirt is so short. I love how that looks on her, but I'm not cheating. I'm only looking. I'm not doing anything about it." Bro, that's not better. That's not better. Get your act together. Anyways, I gave it 4 stars. So if you like Frida McFadden, I think you'll like this one. It's definitely better than any of her other recent releases. So, yeah. So next, I checked out from my local library Head Cases by John McMahon. I gave it 3.5 stars. I felt like the pacing was a little bit off. The beginning was slow, the middle was well paced, and the end felt kind of rushed. Our main character, I also struggled with his name. His name is Gardner Camden, and I just really feel like Camden Gardner would have made more sense as a name. But anyway, that's a me problem. Gardner is a part of an FBI group that solves puzzles, they make connections to help solve cold cases. And one of his previous cases is coming back to haunt him. And it turns out that there is a serial killer that's killing other serial killers. And Gardner and his team need to solve this case. Now, I wish the pacing was more consistent, and I feel like in the end, I was left in the dark with some of the clues because I wasn't making the same connections they were making. I feel like there were some gaps there. But overall, it was an entertaining read. So I think that if you like Criminal Minds, you would definitely enjoy picking up this book. Next is the first DNF of the month, which was Will Prescribe You a Cat by Sue Ishida. I'm probably mispronouncing that. This is a translated Japanese work, and at first I was really enjoying it. It is like this doctor that you go to their clinic, and it's very mysterious, and it's like word of mouth only type of place. And instead of prescribing you medicine for your mental health struggles, they prescribe you a cat. They give you this cat for several days, and you take care of the cat, and taking care of it helps you discover what you need in order to feel better. Um, and I was enjoying it until they said that the clinic was haunted and the doctor, nurse, and cats were ghosts. And I do not do anything paranormal. This DNF is strictly a reading preference. It's not a fault of the book. I just, once you start talking ghosts, I'm out. So I DNF'd that one a little over 50% through. Then we have my book club pick of the month, which was Such Quiet Girls by Noelle Eiley. I used my Spotify hours to listen to this one. However, I do think it's available on Kindle Unlimited. I'm not positive, but I know some of Noelle Eiley's other books are. I really loved this book. I'm glad I did it on audio because the narrators, there were four of them, they were all excellent, but especially the narrator that did Sage. Oh my goodness, she was tugging at my heartstrings with how well she did with her voicing, just sounding so terrified and so vulnerable. She was incredible. I gave this book 5 stars, and I definitely recommend trying the audio for this one because, like I said, the narration was just really, really good. This was my first Noelle Eiley book, and I don't think it'll be the last. I have at least one other of hers on my TBR, so I am excited to get to that. If it's anything as good as this one, then it's going to be a treat. So, yeah, 5 stars. Then my second DNF of the month was Within Arm's Reach by Ann Napolitano. This one I DNF'd for a very similar reason. This one is a multi-generational Irish Catholic family that the granddaughter gets pregnant and she's worried at how her family is going to react. The reason that I DNF'd this one is because the grandma started seeing ghosts that were warning her that her time was close to being over. So again, ghosts means DNF. But looking closer at the synopsis of this book, it was my fault. The synopsis totally already hinted that that was going to be the case. But what had happened was last year I read Hello Beautiful by Anna Napolitano, and I loved it so much that I was like, I need to read all of her books. And so I just like blindly bought the rest of her books when they went on sale for Kindle. So now I have her other books, and I just decided I needed another audiobook, and it was available on Libby. So I picked Within Arm's Reach, and yeah, if I would have read the synopsis, I wouldn't have bought it. So that was my own fault for going into this book blind. So hopefully the other Ann Napolitano books don't do that, and they are more similar to Hello Beautiful, but yeah, I DNF'd that one. Next, I read Love Mom by Ileana Zander. This is on Kindle Unlimited, and I gave it 3 stars. the whole plot felt very similar to a Frida McFadden, which is good. Like, it had a decent plot, but the writing style was really weird to me. I can't even pinpoint what it was, but I did not love the writing style. The character also really annoyed me. She was just kind of whiny. And also, if you took a shot every time she had to remind you that she's goth, you would be so drunk. Like, girl, I get it. You wear dark eyeliner and black lipstick. You don't got to tell me every 5 minutes. So, yeah, I don't, not my favorite, but if you're a fan of Frida McFadden, you might give it a try. Just know that the writing style is not Frida McFadden. The next one is my third and final DNF, and this one kind of has a story behind it. And that would be The Time Traveler's Wife by Audrey Niffenegger. I was doing this one on audio, and so here's the story. I bought this when I was thrifting because I remember reading this when I was a teenager and loving it. And I was like, I want to read it again. It's been so long. I don't remember anything about this book. The only thing I remember is in the movie, it has Rachel McAdams and that one scene where he's like running down the stairs and he disappears and his clothes just like fall down the stairs. That's all I remembered, literally all I remembered. And the more I listened to this book, the more I started realizing I don't think I have read this book. I think what happened was we had this book and I wanted to read it before seeing the movie, and I started it and got bored and said, I'm just going to watch the movie instead. And then I did. But I don't even remember the movie that much. I know I did watch it, but maybe I didn't. Maybe all I remember from that is actually just all in the previews. But anyways, I got like halfway into this and I was like, this book is so boring. And also, like, I understand the time travel thing, but the age gap was weird. Like, when they first meet, she is like 6 and he's like 38. But because of the time travel, he's like thinking, this is my wife. She's 6. I couldn't get over that. That was really weird. I don't know. So I DNF'd it after thinking that I had read and enjoyed this book. I DNF'd it because actually I didn't like it. And also, I don't think I ever actually read it before. The next one that I read and finished, because we're done with DNFs for the month, thank goodness. I had a really bad stretch there. The next one that I read was The Summer Place by Jennifer Weiner, because we had a few like really hot days where it was almost 90 degrees, and I was like, I need a summer read. And then, of course, like right after I started this, we got like a really dreary, rainy streak, which is great. We're in a drought here in Nebraska. We really needed the rain, but that really killed the vibes I was hoping to achieve with reading a summer book. But, anyways, I digress. I read The Summer Place. This had a ton of POVs. Like, I swear I got like 100 pages into this with never having repeated a POV. I had to check ahead to be like, am I ever going to repeat the same person again? You do, but there's like 7 POVs in this. So when I would first start a new chapter, I would be like, okay, I recognize that name, but who the heck is this person? And I would kind of go back and look to see who it was, which turned out to be unnecessary because Jennifer did a really good job. Jennifer, as if I'm on a first name basis with Jennifer Weiner. My friend Jenny here, she did a very good job at the starts of chapters of kind of reminding you who the person was. So you'd be like, who the heck is Ronnie? And then it would be like, Ronnie, oh, I'm talking to my daughter Sarah, and is like, oh, Sarah, I know who Sarah is. I already read her POV. It's Sarah's mom, right? That's who Ronnie is. Stuff like that. She did a very good job of reminding you who people were. I was enjoying this. There are a couple of the storylines that I didn't love the direction that they took, and that really kind of brought it down for me. I ended up giving this one 2.5 stars, and I know I'm never gonna reread this. I'm probably not gonna recommend it to friends, so I'm gonna unhaul this one. I'm also unhauling The Time Traveler's Wife, since it was a DNF. But yeah, I'm gonna unhaul this one, and yeah, I read it. It was fine. Not my favorite. So then, after that long string of DNFs and low star books, I needed something that I knew was going to be good. Um, a bit of a slump palate cleanser, if you will. So I picked up A Pocket Full of Rye by Agatha Christie, which is number 6 in the Miss Marple series. We're still on track to get that finished by the end of the year. If I read one a month or more, I am for sure going to finish by the end of the year, which is what I want to do. This one follows the nursery rhyme that talks about the pocket full of rye. And I love it when Agatha Christie does a book based off a nursery rhyme. Like, And Then There Were None is one of my top favorite books, and that one follows the 10 Little Indians nursery rhyme. So this one was very much similar vibes in that sense, and I loved it. I gave it 4 stars. It is available on Kindle Unlimited. I have the box set, but you don't need to buy the box set if you have Kindle Unlimited. So, yeah, number 6 of Miss Marple, done and dusted, loved it. I'm ready to continue that series. Then we have another NetGalley arc. This one is The Girl I Was by Geneva Rose from Harlequin. That comes out July 15th, and it follows a girl that her life is a mess and she ends up going back in time and meeting her old self and trying to fix herself. Again, I will have a more in-depth review coming soon, so you'll have to wait for that. I do want to give you full disclosure. There are 2 chapters where they're playing with a Ouija board, and I skipped those, but none of the rest of the book delves into anything paranormal, so I read the rest of it, and I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars, minus those 2 chapters. And I definitely also recommend reading the author's note because Geneva Rose talks about this book more in depth and how she never thought it was going to be published. And I thought that was kind of an interesting little story. So I recommend reading that when you finish the book as well. So until then, 4 stars. Look forward to the more in depth review coming soon. So next we have False Witness by Karen Slaughter. I wanted to finish this one up before I get started on Will Trent because I do have all of the Will Trent books now between physical and Kindle, but this I had on my TBR and I wanted to read it first. We're following 2 sisters that are running from their past. They had some very bad traumatic events happened to them when they were young, and now that they are in their 30s, they're dealing with it again. And this was very full of plot twists. I feel like most Karen Slaughter books follow a pretty straight path. This one was twisting and turning, had my jaw on the floor, and my husband's listening to it on audio, which is fun. We don't read a lot of the same stuff, so it's nice being able to talk about this because there are so many different things going on. I highly enjoyed this one. I gave it 4.5 stars. But again, as with all Karen Slaughter, very, very heavy topics discussed in this book. So do check trigger warnings, but if it's something you can handle, I highly recommend it. Very, very good. I've recorded this clip like a million times because I keep rambling about Karen Slaughter. So I'm going to try not to do that. She is one of my favorite authors, but I will try not to ramble on this one. I'll ramble about her again in a little bit because I've read a lot of Karen Slaughter this month. But anyways, we're going to end this clip right here because otherwise I'm going to ramble again. So then I listened to 1 and 4 by Lucinda Berry. This is on Kindle Unlimited and it does come with free audio. So that's how I listened to this one. I gave it 4 stars. I enjoyed it. It was seeming like it was going to be very predictable, but then the last like 3 or so chapters and the epilogue, I was just like, whoa. Definitely did not end how I thought it was going to. Um, and that's all I'm going to say about that. But it was kind of a slow start, I will say. There's a lot of characters to keep track of, so that was getting kind of confusing. There are interspersed in there some flashback chapters that you don't know who the narrator is. So I had a couple of theories on who that person was, and I was wrong on every single one of them. So if you like being wrong in your theories about books, highly recommend this book. But again, Lucinda Berry is very good. She has great mental health representation because she is a psychologist, and yeah, she writes some good books. So this is her newest one, and I enjoyed it. And then next, my Libby hold was ready for Vera Wong's Guide to Snooping on a Dead Man by Jessie Q. Sutanto. I loved the first Vera Wong book, and the second one did not disappoint. I think I actually liked this one better because not only do we get to have our old characters coming back, but we get a whole new cast of characters joining. And this one I feel like was way more vast and interesting plot, whereas the first one was very much more straightforward in plot. This one was so interesting. It was based on some true events, and Jessie Q. Sutanto, she said that she thought that the first Vera book was going to be a standalone, but everybody loved her so much that she brought her back. And I'm really hoping, based on how this book ended, that she comes back for a third installation because I am loving Vera. She cracks me up the way she messes up common English phrases because English isn't her first language and she just thinks she's all that. And I love a little old lady that thinks she can be a detective. Vera is very much if Miss Marple was an Asian grandma, and I am here for it. I absolutely love Vera's character. So I gave this book two and a half. This is the second book. I gave it 4.5 stars, okay? Not 2.5. That's ridiculous. 4.5 stars for Vera. And here's to hoping that she comes out with a third one because if so, sign me up. I want to read it immediately. And then last but not least, I listened to the audiobook of Blonde Hair, Blue Eyes by Karen Slaughter. I know, 3 Karen Slaughter in 1 month. This is the short story that goes along with Pretty Girls. I give it 3 stars strictly just because it's not necessary. Um, if you've read Pretty Girls, you'll know that there's 2 sisters and it goes into the disappearance of their older sister. Blonde Hair, Blue Eyes is the last day of the older sister's life before she disappears. So it just gives you a little bit of insight into who she is, what she does, how she disappeared. Very much not necessary to the plot of Pretty Girls. You can read it in any order. I obviously read Pretty Girls first. Um, and this doesn't spoil the plot of Pretty Girls. It doesn't enhance the plot of Pretty Girls. So if you read Pretty Girls, you don't have to read this book and you don't need to read it first. You could read it on its own, but if you do, it's kind of got a cliffhanger. But it was just there, so I read it. I enjoyed it. It's Karen Slaughter, of course I did. But I gave it 3 stars just because you don't have to read it. It doesn't even need to exist. Yeah, I feel like that's all I have to say about that. So that is my May wrap up. I am looking forward to wiping the DNF slate clean for the month and hopefully having a better reading month DNF wise. Um, 3 books that I know I'm going to be reading is continuing the Smythe Smith, continuing Miss Marple, and starting Will Trent. So those are 3 books that I know for sure I'm going to read next month. But otherwise, I wish that I could be one of those girls that makes a TBR video because I love the prompt jar TBR videos. They look so fun to do, but I am such a mood reader. I don't know if I could ever do that. I just I finish a book and I go and I look at my stack and I pick the next one based on whatever is calling to me more at that moment. So I don't know if I could do that. I wish I could. Maybe I'll try. I don't know. Let me know if you want me to try. But otherwise, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, bye. Then I read The Tenant by Frida McFadden is her name.